The Wiltshire Wildlife Trust is a charity with the aim of preserving habitats so that wildlife can thrive across the county. In Salisbury, the River Restoration Project hopes to improve the quality of the river after years of change that has affected the wildlife and plants that live here.
And what we found are really good evidence of waterfoals, especially down on, we've got two channels here, especially down on the back channel we've got lots of waterfowl evidence, some evidence of otters as well. And we're in the Hampshire Avon catchment here, and it's a very sort of well protected catchment, both at the European and the national level. So it's an SAC, which is a special area of conservation, and a SSSI, which is a site of special scientific interest. And it's been designated that as being these areas because of the species that occur here. So we've also got things like Atlantic salmon and brown trout, and they're very important fish species, and plants such as ranunculus, so it's water crowfoot. Again, it provides great habitat cover. It's a very important species within the habitat.
The project will start from Lower Bemerton and make its way down to Churchfields. It follows on from previous projects that have taken place along the River Nadder within the last 2 years. Part of the work involves clearing out a plant called Himalayan balsam.
This species in particular, it's got pink flowers, it's quite characteristic, but it spreads very easily along watercourses, and if it's not managed and controlled, then that will just continue to spread and it will take over, and it dominates wherever it occurs. It kind of forms dominant stands, and those stands can outcompete our native vegetation, so it has an effect of reducing our overall biodiversity. It's also an annual plant, so it's got really shallow roots, and it dies back over winter, so it leaves riverbanks subject to erosion as well. If your banks are being eroded, species such as waterfowl then can't get into the banks and they can't make their burrows to nest in, so it could negatively impact upon their populations.
Over time, humans have also made an impact on this river.
Historic management of rivers is one of the main reasons why we do our projects, is to basically counteract the influence that humans have had on our rivers. So, for example, things like dredging or kind of over straightening of rivers, over widening of rivers. These are all fairly negative impacts that essentially leave you with a more uniform river profile, whereas we want to have a more diverse profile. So the more diversity you have within the river, within the flow of the river, the more diversity then you can have in terms of biodiversity and wildlife.
Using locally sourced materials, structures are made which changes the flow of water. This causes sediment to build up and provide areas for animals to live and vegetation to grow. The project will see 78 of these structures placed into the river. So far, Victoria says the community has responded well.
What we tend to find is that people who have land and own land on a river really respect that river. They like it because they like the wildlife that comes with it, and they can see, how the river changes every day going past them in their houses. And I think, yes, they do really appreciate the importance of it, and they really appreciate having access to nature and access to rivers.
Volunteers will be expected to head out into the river to help build these structures, conduct wildlife counts and pull out any invasive plant life. The timing of the project has been selected to prevent the least amount of disruption to the river's natural order.
We do all our river restoration work in September to October time, just after the bird breeding season, and just before the Atlantic salmon and brown trout start to migrate up rivers and spawn. So the river restoration team will hopefully provide habitat for these spawning fish, which means cleaning up the gravels so they are not covered in silt, and which these brushwood mattresses should be able to, when the flow of the river is going downstream, it should be able to hold on to the sediment, which then cleans the gravels, so then the Atlantic salmon can spawn.
The charity is asking the public to get in touch with them if they want to help out. Kara Digby, That's TV.